Hey, everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. I'm Anthony, and this is the podcast where connections thrive. Each episode, we spotlight inspiring entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals doing amazing things. Together, we'll grow your circle, spark collaborations, and discover new opportunities. Today, we're meeting Sam Mitchell, the host of the successful podcast, Autism Rocks and Rolls. Sam, who is on the spectrum himself, has built an incredible platform to celebrating success and spreading awareness about autism and mental health. From hosting big-name guests like Dr. Grandin, WWE legend Mick Foley and NASCAR driver Armani Williams, to delivering a TED Talk and earning a Davey Award, Sam is making waves with his powerful mission and inspiring work. How are you doing today, Sam?
Hey man, how about yourself? I'm doing
I'm
all right.
I'm doing well. 2025 is off to a great start. I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. Any big plans this year?
Any big plans this year? Let's see. Not off the top of my head. One I can think of off the top of my head is I just got booked yesterday. Highly likely, I'm going to speak at a HR conference in February. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, that'll be fun. You do a lot of events like that, going and speaking at conferences?
I've done that before. I also an event planner in Indiana, which is where I'm from.
Awesome. Well, that was going to be my next question is where you're located. So you're in Indiana?
A
Awesome.
lot of cornfields.
Yeah, hey, I'm in Iowa. I feel you there. I'm in the exact same mess of fields. So, are you a lifer? You've been there forever, or are you newer to the area?
Yeah, born and bred here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, what's fun if somebody's coming to visit Indiana, outside of, wandering through the cornfields like we do here? What do you do for fun there? What are you taking? Where do they go to eat?
Well, I mean, depends on where you're at, but I'm close to Indianapolis, so if you were looking for a fun spot, I think Indy is your best bet. We have the Indy 500 annually. I mean, if you're a racing fan, I would highly recommend checking that out once in your life. I would also say we have the Eltador Museum. It's a train museum, I think, as well. I think we also have the Old Spaghetti Factory. It's an old, ancient, legendary restaurant in Indy. And then through Bloomington, we have the IU. So we're born and bred there. We have history in Vincent, which is where I go to college at. And then let me think of something else. We like our shows a lot. So we have stadiums such as the Gainbridge Fieldhouse and Lucas Oil Stadium.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So, well, what can you tell us about what you're doing? You're the host of a podcast. Kind of how did that all get started and what are you doing now?
Well, through the podcast, it's grown so much. Is the way it started was after I joined my high school's media club. I fell in love with it so much it just clicked. A few downloads here and there, but then the downloads grew bigger than I ever imagined. And I'm not kidding. I said than I ever imagined. Went from 10 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 80. Then we had media appearances calling like local TV magazines. Then before you know it, I got a board of 6 members. Then we're starting to plan events. Our first gal was in 2021, I think. And then in 2022, I got invited to my first speaking gig in Oklahoma, which is where I'm trying to change the view of autism because my belief is through this podcast and the work I do, I'm trying to change a stigma of a population that, in my view, gets ignored way too much.
So we're getting a lot of feedback here. Half of that was just echoing and roboting really bad. How's your connection doing?
It's fine.
Yeah. Am I roboting or am I breaking up at all?
No, you're good.
Yeah. So yours is freezing. Let me see. Yeah, because my connection says it's doing fine. I don't know if it's just Zoom being funky today or what is up there. But yeah, I didn't hear half of that, so sorry about
No,
that.
it's all right. I'll say it again.
Okay,
So
let's start. Well, it's been the whole time. So, if you're good, we can start again from like where you're located.
okay.
That's fine. Okay. So let me just re-ask. So, okay, awesome. So you're from Indiana. Are you born and bred there?
Yep, born and bred there. We got a lot of attractions. I would say if you're a big speed race fan guy, check out the Indy 500. You like our shows, so we have the Gainbridge Fieldhouse and Lucas Oil Stadium. And then we're big on our sports too. So we have IU. That's a big college in Bloomington, which is where I'm almost located. And then we also have the Eltador Museum. It's a train museum if you like trains. We also have the Old Spaghetti Factory if you're a restaurant person. That's all in Indianapolis. So if you're looking for fun in Indiana, Indiana is the way to go.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'd have to check that. I've never been to a race, but that would be a fun one to go to. Do you ever get out there very much watching races there in Indianapolis?
Not in Indy, but saw like tractor pulls and semi races.
Mm, I gotcha. Awesome. Well, what can you tell us about what you're doing? You're hosting the podcast and everything. What's all that look like?
Well, I run a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls. It's a podcast about autism and how we cope with daily struggles that you may or may not understand. Through the podcast, it's grown so much, I developed sponsors where I get to advertise, and that's my favorite part because I get to help out people. A board of 6. I'm also an event planner in Indiana, which is where I'm from. I also do motivational speaking. I've spoken in Oklahoma, Orlando 3 times, Canada twice, Stuart, Florida, and Washington, D.C.
Awesome.
And I was just done keynote speaking in Daniels, West Virginia. And I forgot with my events. Last month we did our breakfast with Santa.
That's really cool. Yeah, how long have you been doing the podcast? Is it a recent thing or you've been working on it for a while?
No, it's been a while since October 2019.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, you probably got a lot of reps. You're probably getting pretty good at it now. So what got you started? What was the epiphany that you're like, you know what, I need to bring more attention to this. I need more people to understand what's going on.
Well, it started after I joined my high school's media club, and I fell in love with it so much I decided to start my own podcast. And broadcasting just clicked. That's why I'm going to college right now to study and expand my skills. But that was when Autism Rocks and Rolls was born. The goal of the podcast really is to change the stigma of a population that gets ignored way too much. I can say it from experience because I'm on the autism spectrum, and throughout my life, I've been ignored too much to count on one finger.
Yeah, I got you there. So what do you think the most fun thing is? What do you enjoy the most about what you're doing now?
Well, there's a lot I enjoy about what I do, but it's trying to change the population. And I get to see people break through and say, oh, this guy who gets underestimated and gets overshadowed can actually do something. That's one part. But then the other part's the editing. I'm the odd duck who likes to edit because I think it's cool you could get rid of word stammers, fill in words. You could change it up how you want to. It's really cool, creative.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'm not the biggest fan of the editing portion, but it definitely does have an appeal to it. What are some lessons that you learned? So you've been doing it for, what is this, going on 6 years now? What are some of the hard won lessons, things that you didn't know was going to come your way that others that are maybe getting started should look out for?
The technology you get, because I knew technology was a pain in the rear. I just didn't know how bad of a pain in the rear it was until I started podcasting.
Yeah, it seems like
There's a reason why we use Zoom, and I prefer Zoom over StreamYard and Riverside.
hmm Well, what are those reasons, just for others that are listening?
Well, our bandwidth really stinks. So with us, it takes 2 hours for it to upload if we use StreamYard or Riverside. But with Zoom, it's 30 minutes. And if you're going to use StreamYard or Riverside, you better have one of the best internet spots alive. Because it will go and go and go and go. We literally left an interview on the other day, and it went from the whole night. And I thought, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is important to understand kind of the pros and cons of everything. And Zoom's been good for me so far. I've heard good and bad things about all platforms. So that's interesting. I hadn't heard that perspective though, but that's really awesome. Who are you looking to connect with? What are some people out there that are going through some things that if they're dealing with X, Y, or Z, you're the person or you're the show that they should be listening to?
So I try to make it as inclusive as possible. But my main people are the people who are on the autism spectrum, for one. If you're related to autism, for one, whether that be a parent who has a child with autism, you're on the autism spectrum itself, you have a friend whose son is on the autism spectrum, you are a special education teacher, there's just needs to be an affiliation with autism or mental health, because I also try to make this podcast mental health advocacy hard because I've had mental health issues such as anxiety and depression.
Mhm. Yeah, I think huge swaths of the population have gone through, that, and any perspectives on, how to get through it and stuff is always welcome. And putting mental health more in the forefront is definitely something that it's becoming more relevant, and I think it's a good thing. So, how about, the more recent episodes? What are some highlights of your recent episodes, or some examples of ones that you've had that really stood out to you that kind of were really, really impactful for you?
Well, I can tell you the one I dropped out a couple of days ago. You had on your show too. I saw it because I looked up his name and your interview popped up with him.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Clayton,
Mm. Yep.
the guy who runs Community Pay It Forward, and he had a foster son or daughter. I think it was a son who was on the autism spectrum.
Yep. Yeah, no, he was awesome. I'd recommend people listening to your episode with him. My episode, just everything the guy says, I've really enjoyed having conversations with him. But how often is your podcast? And how do you kind of go about that process for people that are wanting to get into it?
I publish it every 13 days. And as far as collaborating, I'm not too nitpicky on collaborating. There's some stuff that are just harder to collaborate with. I mean, if you're a finance company, it's going to be hard to collaborate with someone who's on the autism spectrum. But we'll figure something out. I mean, we try to make everyone happy and do something with everyone. I like collaborating. That's my favorite part, too, of the work I do, is trying to help out other businesses by doing advertisements, projects, or something where they get the word out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of my favorite parts as well, just because you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of creative ways to collaborate outside of just kind of your standard ones too that you can discover. And it's really fun to stumble across those. So, how does Autism Rocks and Rolls change the conversation around autism?
Well, I think it changes the conversation around autism because I think now more than ever it's relevant. The numbers keep growing. It's 1 in 45 previously. It was 1 in 39. I don't know the number now, but from what I've heard lately, it's 1 in 36. 1 in 36. I could be wrong. It's probably now 1 in 34 or something, but it's going to keep growing. And in my view, because it keeps growing and it's inevitable, it's time to learn about it.
Yeah, you're seeing it more and more, and you need to understand, because everybody's different. You need to understand exactly how to communicate with people, where they're at.
And that's why, too, actually, you just nailed it on the head right there. Everyone on the spectrum is differently capable, even the ones that society deems low functioning. It's not spina bifida where it's just one portion. Each person on the autism spectrum has different challenges or strengths. It's a spectrum. You have one side, and I don't like to say low functioning or high functioning. I call it the mind of, because that's just the way their brain processes information. So maybe this child who is 8 is on the autism spectrum, biologically 8, but mentally he's 2.
Mhm.
And that's not me being a jerk. That's just me being realistic.
No, and that's just like you said. It's being realistic. It's acknowledging reality and knowing that you have to have that bit of empathy to know who you're talking to, and how to best talk to them. There's a lot of people out there that they don't know how to communicate with people on a good day. So you kind of got to meet them, like I said, meet them where they are. So, what is your advice for embracing who you are and celebrating your unique strengths?
Well, I think when you look at what they can do versus what they cannot do. Okay, maybe that person who I mentioned earlier who has the mindset of a 3-year-old can't brush his teeth. But here's a great example too. Have you seen AGT contestant Cody Elite?
I have not.
Okay, well, he's blind and on the autism spectrum. And I think if you would chat with him, you'd be probably chatting to a 3-year-old realistically. But what if I told you this? He's an entertainer, he's a pianist, and he won the whole season.
Okay. Yeah. That's impressive. Like I like your approach where it's finding out what people can do, not what they can't. Because we all have our unique strengths. We all have, areas where we can shine. And it's really interesting to see that, some people can do amazing things in one area, and that's everybody. It's just going to be differences of degree. So awesome. What is it like?
It's like me. I couldn't win AGT probably with playing a piano. You put me on a piano, they're gonna get buzzed and they're gonna hear no, 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 and I'm out the door.
Yeah, you get me on a piano, nobody's having a good time. It's gonna be loud and it's gonna be, I'll play it, just not well. But what's it like interviewing legends like Mick Foley and Dr. Temple Grandin, and how do they inspire your mission?
Well, it's fun. I mean, you're gonna meet people who have humongous platforms, but I think it's fun too because you get to hear insights from people who are rich, famous. They might have a spot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, but they're taking their time for me to talk about mental health. And they made their own fame, but they're still taking time for me, but also talking about maybe their story or their relation with autism.
Mhm. That's been one of my favorite things too, is you meet people you wouldn't otherwise have met. And so many people out there are just amazing people. And, you kind of want to meet all of them. So I'm definitely there with you. But what do you want to end on? Is there any advice or anything that you'd like to say to anybody out there that, maybe we didn't get to that, might be a good takeaway for them?
Well, I think the world could be a lot nicer. And I think the world could be a lot nicer and not act so stupid. I think we get along so much better, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're making steps in that direction, but it's still kind of a long way ahead of us to get there.
And
But
then two, I would also think about we need to accept autism because I think we're aware of it. We're just not accepting of it. There's a reason why April's called Autism Awareness Month. That's a load of BS. It needs to be Autism Acceptance Month, and there shouldn't even be a month. There should be autism acceptance yearly around, not 1 month where you look at people and be like, oh my gosh, they're so cool.
right. Yeah, and that just boils down to just treating people like people. Everybody's a person. We all have our own stuff going on, whether it's autism, whether it's depression, whether it's any mental health issue, whether it's just circumstance. Just being empathetic and aware, and embracing regardless of the time of the year or whatever it is. Just be a good person, at the core. So, where can people find you? What's the best way that they get a hold of you?
I'm not really a hard guy to find. You can find me on your favorite media platforms. If you Google me, your search engine optimization, something will pop up.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to put some stuff in the description so people, don't have to even search. They just click. We'll make it as easy as possible. But if anybody out there would like to get in touch with Sam, absolutely reach out to him. He's an awesome guy. You're going to enjoy the conversation. You're going to learn. You're going to be able to kind of, understand a different perspective from yours. So absolutely recommend doing it. If you prefer an introduction, you can reach out to me as well. I'd be happy to make that three-way introduction. But otherwise, you can visit us at ikag.me, where you can find more episodes, subscribe to our newsletter, and connect with a growing community. If you or someone would like to be interviewed, you could also apply on the website. But Sam, I really appreciate you taking the time. I really appreciate you coming on, talking to us, and giving us a different perspective today. Like you said, it's a prevalent thing. You kind of gotta just understand, be empathetic, be a good person. So I really appreciate that, and I hope we all have an awesome day, and let's all go out there and grow our circle. All right.